Hello, hello, hello. Geez, it's been a while.
Hello, everybody. It's so good to be back. It's been a couple of weeks off, so it's nice to be here again.
It's been a while. It's been probably about 3 or 4 weeks for me, but it seems kind of weird seeing you all back together. Everyone back together apart from Trevor. Where is
Yeah, we're
Trevor
missing
anyway?
Trevor.
He's disappeared off the face of the planet. Oh no, he's working as well, isn't he? Well,
Yeah.
anyway. So, how y'all been?
Yeah, doing okay. I've recovered from my COVID in whatever input. I guess that's the best way to say it. Yeah. I'm actually doing that, coughing every once in a while. So once in a while, I might strike up a good cough, but we'll see. Yeah, no, I'm doing good, doing a lot better, feeling a lot healthier. So, how about you guys?
Thank God you're feeling healthier.
Yeah,
I tell you, like it wasn't worse than the flu, but it was different than the flu. That's what I found. It wasn't worse, but it was definitely different, and it was like, whew, okay, this is fun. Not something I want to repeat. Oh my god, my daughter's watching. Hi, darling.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah. Hi, baby.
hello, Michelle.
Yeah.
Oh, my son's watching as well. Hello, Mason.
Hi, Mason. Hi, Ian. Hello, Colleen. So yeah, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. We did a fundraiser last night for a heritage site up in Vernon, BC. We did a presentation and we had like a 3-hour investigation, and it was worth it. And it's kind of short in relation to like 3 hours, but it definitely didn't disappoint. That's for sure. It's a very the place has a lot of history to it. It's kind of a story, a Hollywood story to it as well. And but no, it was a pleasure. The place is called Kaltani House, which is in Vernon, British Columbia. And if anyone that is watching is near to that proximity, I highly recommend go check the place out, and just to get a kind of get a sense about the history there, because it's quite a story. But no, it's good. It was good fun. It's nice to give back to the community once in a while.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like
Well, you got a pretty good EVP as well, but it's unfortunately it's
yeah,
hard for us to hear it. So, do you
yeah,
want to tell us a little bit about it, though?
yeah. Unfortunately, I can't play it for the audience because the volume's too low. And Ian's on. I sent it to Ian. Ian's a new member of my team as well, and so we both, myself and Ian Thompson, who's also on the tuning in at the moment, and Michael, we're all up in the ladies' bedroom, and she apparently passed away in the room as well, and she the like the notation we got was she didn't like men in her room. Like she was very kind of withdrawn from society and stuff like that. And any men that went into her room on tours and stuff like that, there was kind of a adverse effect. Some people had kind of cold feelings and stuff like that. Some people had that feeling that they shouldn't be in there. But we got the very first time we went there, we actually heard with our own ears an older woman shout out, "Get them out of here!" And we actually thought it was someone downstairs, but we heard it with our own ears, like a disembodied voice with our own ears. But when we went there yesterday, it was I was laying on the bed, and it was Michael turned around and said something. Are you laying by the side of Peter? Because apparently she wasn't very, she didn't like people laying on the bed and stuff like that. And we heard a voice saying yes, and it was to the point where everyone obviously heard it. Michael heard it without headphones as well, but it was just so loud, and it was like the hairs on your arms stood up, and it was very phenomenal and compelling. That for sure was one of the places. Yeah, definitely for sure. It's a good place, and there's other areas in the building as well. We've had the name of staff members. Objects get moved around, and we were downstairs as well with Ian and Jason last night, and we can hear like a pinging of the glass because apparently there's little toys in the cabinets and stuff like that, and they always get moved around. And when we were sitting there, you could hear like little flickering of the glass and stuff like that. It was really, really surreal place. Even being like a kind of healthy skeptic, it was really hard to define that as a logical anything being logical about that whatsoever. But anyway, it was good fun. Lynda, what about yourself? What have you been up to?
Oh boy, I've been up to all kinds of stuff. I went under the knife. I had eye surgery. Never fun. Never fun. But the good news is that they gave me really good drugs. So I was okay. I have to get this eye done, but I do have a one eye that actually sees everybody, so I can see everyone. The other eye, forget it. I can't see a darn thing. So my vision is really wonky, which for a paranormal investigator, it's wonky anyway. But
yeah.
no, I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. It's been crazy. We did a really great event for our town on Thursday this past week, on Thursday night at the Pioneer Village, and we played some really creepy EVPs and some spirit box captures and freaked everybody out a little. And so to freak people out.
You have a really cool EVP that you said that you could share with us, right? So walk us through it. Walk us through it, because this is like, we heard it just before the show, and I was like,
it's quite the EVP. I know. All right. So a friend of ours whose home has been or had been active for years and years and years. And the daughter was the person that the spirits were most to. And the daughter is, of course, quite sensitive. But anyway, they sold the home and they had all the furniture out. They were doing one of those final walkthroughs where you make sure everything's done. And so the father, whose name is John, left a tape recorder or a digital voice recorder running in the home while he wasn't there. And he said, hey, if you want to come out and play, go ahead. Bye.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
This is what he captured. Now, his daughter was not there at this time, but hopefully people can hear it. So we're gonna play it.
So,
right?
yeah. So tell people what it's saying, just for those that can't, like with audio, it might be hard to hear. What is it?
It is kind of, well, what the voice is saying is, do you want to play Johnny where she ain't? I'll play it again. I mean, come on.
That's awesome. That's kind of original as well, because you usually just get the standard "get out." Right. That's it. Yeah, got to get a very breathly that kind of thing. But yeah,
that just blew me away too. I thought, yeah, that's cool. I want to go.
That's awesome.
And here they were living in this house the entire time with something that was that vocal. Like,
yes,
wow,
yes,
awesome,
100%. Okay. Pretty cool, right, guys?
Definitely. Wow. So if you're tuning into the show, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and click on those notifications. So tonight's show, we decided to, rather than have special guests this week, we decided to kind of run through a kind of a top 10 theme. We're kind of going to be doing that over the next period, over the next few months, and just to change it up a little bit in relation to the shows. And so this evening's topic is the top 10 most chilling theories about ghosts based on TV shows and movies. So what I did, I looked on YouTube as you do, and Google, and I got a kind of a collection of the top 10 theories about ghosts, and it was based on the YouTube channel Mogo, and there was another one, Beyond Spirits, as well, that had a similar thing as well. I kind of modified it a bit as well, because they weren't really talking too much of paranormal investigators language, so there is a slight modification on it. So, but yeah, so let's go. Let's get started straight away on that. So we have on number 10 is hostile spirits. So what we're going to be doing is kind of a round table based on our own experiences with the hostile spirits and all of the other top 10s, and giving a kind of an overview and our kind of opinion on it as well. So Kathy, what is your experience with hostile spirits, and what are your theories about them as well?
Why do you have to start with me?
Okay, sorry, Lynda. Then sorry.
Actually, as far as hostile spirits, I actually, we haven't really, I would have to say, like, on investigations, we haven't really, dealt with a lot, like, to be honest. Like, there's been the few odd ones that are probably a little bit more, aggressive or something along that line. But I would say, as far as like demonic or extremely negative, thankfully we haven't dealt with a lot of those. We've had some pretty wild ones where you're like, whoa, what the heck is this person doing, or what the heck is this that's going on? But do I, okay, the thing is that we've, and it's mentioned in your book, about my own experience, my own haunting. And I would have to say that was probably the most hostile that I had to deal with. So if anybody wants to read that story, make sure they pick up Pete's book. If you want to boost the title, you can right now.
Hang on, I'm just trying to find a link. There you go. There you go. Look, it's one of those 3 books. They're available on Amazon right now.
Exactly. And yeah, and so it's in the Paranormal Investigators Journal, or what, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, so my experience is in there. And I mean, I would definitely say that I believe in hostile spirits for sure. Do I believe that everything is demonic if they're hostile or negative? Absolutely not. I mean, for me personally, I personally think demons have better shit to do than run around and haunt everybody. I mean, I think that, if I was demonic, I know where I'm going. Like, it's not going to be, blow Joe down the street who's got nothing to add to, my own personal enjoyment, right? So I mean, that's just the way that I look at it. So it doesn't mean that it can't happen. It just, for me, I just don't think it's as common of an experience as people like to make it out to be.
This categorization is based on obviously hostile spirits. There's a delineation between hostile spirits and demonic spirits. This be categorized as more the negative spirits, and the face of demonic spirits be more kind of the spiritual side, like the religious side and stuff like that, which you just bounced upon one of, I think it's number 4. So I'm trying to keep that line in the sand. So
yeah.
But no, I get it. I totally get what you're saying, and it's that it's definition as well, and it's tough. But with me, obviously, I've come across cases over the years where they've come forward and they said that before the latest fashion was demonic and it was a demon and stuff like that. They said that there's this spirit's nasty, it's been doing this and stuff like that. But a lot of the cases I've been on, it's just a misunderstanding. Like, it's that it's always been that whenever we've gone through that threshold of communication, that we've just given them that one EVP or that one picture and stuff like that, that interpretation of the client of it being hostile is that automatically turned around as that Casper the Friendly Ghost. And, they then develop that understanding, that spirit that's there. And they either learn, they learn to live with it, or the activity just diminishes straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, I had a little experience with a hostile spirit in one of our neighboring towns. Now, we're talking a long time ago, 1980. This lady telephoned me and told me that she was picked up and thrown against the wall in her bathroom. So I thought that was pretty incredible. And then she told me that this is not the first time that it had happened. It had happened multiple times. So when I had gone, this is when I was freelance, doing this freelance. I had gone to her home to visit. It was an old hotel, which had been completely transformed, made into a home. And the bedrooms upstairs, there were lots of walls that had been knocked down, and 2 walls were knocked down to make this incredibly huge bathroom, which was beautiful. But we called in a psychic medium to find out what the heck was going on. I knew that it had been probably because the place had been renovated so much, maybe something was upset or angry. Right. And sure enough, when we called the psychic medium over and she went and walked through the home, she said, yeah, there's this man who used to come and stay at this hotel. And he's really ticked off because this woman keeps coming into his bedroom and taking her clothes off. He was like,
that's funny.
So that was pretty hot, but he was really hostile. I mean, he was not only throwing her around, but he was bothering the dog, kicking the dog, and really upset. So mercifully, he was told to go home by this psychic medium who called people forward and called some of his relatives forward, and he left. And after that, it was fine. But he was really hostile.
He was angry.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, we did an investigation. Well, Vancouver Paranormal Society probably about 8 or 9 years ago on a housing complex in the Lower Mainland, and the city actually called us in because there was co-op housing built there, and the residents were just getting up and leaving because there was a lot of parallels, or there was a lot of stories that were similar in each of the houses along one particular street. So the city actually went in and they paid for our weekend accommodation for the family members that lived in this row. And we actually went into the houses and had free reign of the houses over the course of a long weekend, just to document events and stuff like that. Anyway, what was a turning point more than anything else was that one of the houses and one of the first guys we interviewed was a total, and I define this as a non-believer, not skeptic, but die hard, black and white guy. I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that whatsoever. But he was in the kitchen, and he has 2 young kids, and he had a wife and stuff like that upstairs. He was standing there making dinner, and on the right hand side of where the oven was, you could see the stair areas, and he saw his son being physically pulled down the stairs by his leg. His leg was up in the air, and his son was trying to hold on to the stairs, being pulled down the stairs and stuff like that. And that was like the turning point. And when we had, when you interview people and stuff like that, you get kind of a sense sometimes that whether they're maybe exaggerating the truth, but you could see with his eyes, because he was bawling his eyes out, because his whole system has been, thrown over because of what happened there. But yeah, that was an example for us as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was quite the investigation, and it was, I don't know what they did in the end, but we documented a lot of stuff there. We just gave it to the city, and I don't know what they did after that. I'm still in contact with one of the tenants that were living there, and I think she moved away eventually because of the problems. But wow. Oh, so there you go. So as moving on then, number 9. So we have attention seekers. So spirits that are defined as attention seekers are ones that follow you around, sometimes mischievous, ones that just, they're known to even follow you to your workplace, that kind of thing. So what do you know about that then, Lynda?
Yeah, I totally believe that. I've worked with a lot of clients who feel that they have an attachment, which I would think an attention seeker might very well be, because they follow them around. They do things, they move objects. We actually had a family that was holed up in their living room because of, I think, an attention seeker. The husband used to clean up after murders and suicides and things like that. He was one of the cleaners.
Like victim services kind of.
Yeah, and he brought something home, which opened up all the cupboards and used to poke people and all of that stuff, which definitely was an attention-seeking kind of spirit. Mercifully, it went away, but for the time that it was there, it was definitely in need of a lot of attention. Kind of like a little kid, mommy, watch this, mommy, can I do this? Mommy, watch this. That kind of
yeah, we all know about that. That's awesome. Kathy.
Yeah, we had an experience with this one family where I would have to put it in as probably attention seeking. It was more the moving of objects, like all the bloody time, and even while we were there investigating, you'd go and put a recorder down and it would be across the room or it would disappear all to, like, and you're kind of turning on each other a little bit, not, not dramatically or anything, but you're like, did you move that recorder? No. Well, where the hell is it? Like, where would you have put it? You know what I mean? Because you remember that you put it, you put something there, and this family was dealing with stuff all the time. And the kids were actually, at that point where they were regularly arguing with each other, or the parents would be arguing with the kids because things, kept disappearing. And I think that that's pretty much what that was just trying to get the attention, or be, pay attention to me, that kind of energy. Right. And eventually, it just kind of came down to a fact of, look, you're going to have to kind of live with this or move. Because it seemed to be really, directly related to the house. And so it and I think after a while, once they stopped, or they would just ask, can you please put this back for me? Like, once it got attention, it seemed to be okay. Can you just put this back? Can you return this, please? I need my keys. I got to go. That kind of, it seemed to kind of calm down a bit. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So Ian has a question. Do you think attention seeking can be a spiritual attachment?
100%. As I said, in that particular case that I worked, I believe that this gentleman had a spirit attachment that he brought home from one of his cleaning episodes. And I think that it wanted as much attention as possible. So yes, I do think it can be. Yeah.
I agree too.
Yeah.
We probably, I think it was about 12, 13 years ago, we had an investigation down in Richmond, BC, which is in the lower mainland. And it was a Vietnamese family that they bought a printing store, like a printing shop. And they called us in there and they said that they were proclaiming that there was a young boy walking around the office, and then they can see, they could see him every now and again looking around the corners and stuff like that. And he's kind of mischievous, and he'd pick things up like stationery, and he'd hide stationery in jail and stuff like that. And it was kind of a very kind of light and warm story when we first heard it. And obviously sometimes you kind of take this step back. But all these people had all these stories, and it seemed like more kind of folklore than what it was a reality. But anyway, we did the investigation and stuff like that. And one particular time, it was ongoing for probably the best part of 7-8 months. One particular time, a friend of mine invited a medium to come in, and at that time I wasn't really too flush of having mediums there, because it became a bit more of a deterrent on us as an investigators doing what we were doing and stuff like that. But then she came around and she said that there was she said, I can pick up on an older man, and we didn't say anything about what was going in there or anything like that. And this older man was called Thomas. And she said that's all I can pick up on. He was an older man, like, beard and stuff like that. Anyway, it was like, okay, thanks very much, bye. Slam the door, off she goes. she was no help at all. But coincidentally, like a few weeks later, we were doing another investigation out there, and then one of the neighbours walked past, because this shop was actually built on a residential area, and then this woman was walking along with her dog and stuff like that, and one of my investigators was just small talking about their place, and she said, "Oh, you're investigating stuff like that," and it was brought up about the lady that used to own what it was originally at that time, a house, and she said that there was a family in there, and the family kind of out, a lot of the family outlived there, but there was a guy that actually died in the house, and his name was Thomas. And what it was, it was the boy the little boy was Thomas, and because there was characteristics that was identified by the medium as well and stuff like that. But the little boy was actually Thomas. But when he manifested, he manifested himself as a small child, and as an adult as well when he was with the medium. Because sometimes you get that. A lot of mediums, or a lot of people say that there's a lot of fraudulent ghosts where they pretend to be a kid and stuff like that kind of thing. But it was like they were both ID'd as that one Thomas guy, which is phenomenal. But yeah, he was very much mischievous when we saw him around. But he was seen many times after we left in both forms, older form and young form as well. Like, how does that even work? It's just mind blown. But
that's pretty wild.
It's totally wild.
It's cool.
So as we move on to number 8, ghost stories. So the foundation of what we do, really. Everyone everyone likes a good ghost story. Like, everyone's got a story to tell about the paranormal, regardlessly whether they're a true believer or not. Lots of folklore, like especially where I come from in England as well, like or Britain as well. We've got a lot. There's a lot of urban myths, ghost stories, and stuff like that, and so forth. So, what do you think about that, Lynda?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that a lot of people fall into believing things that are just, I don't know, maybe folklore, hearsay, whatever. I mean, not long ago, we had a case where somebody said, that they had been told that their place of residence is cursed. And they'd been having some issues there, and prior residents also had been having some stuff happen, but they were told by somebody that, well, this place is cursed. So of course now they truly believe it, that anytime something happens, that, well, it's obviously the curse, and obviously I'm going to have to move because this place is cursed. But it's that old adage that says you only give it, what is it? The power that you give it is the power that you give it. And if you're not going to give it any power, then it's not going to have any power over you. So again, I think people can fall into believing things. Yeah. So we're still trying to convince that person that don't let that have any power over you. It's not cursed. You're not cursed.
There's that saying about if you believe in something too much, it becomes a reality. And there's a lot of stories about that throughout, more so in America, because apparently there's more ghosts in America than the rest of the world. God forbid why. But yeah, it's one of those things. With me, more recently, obviously there's some stories about the old country and stuff like that, but more kind of recently was the Cathy, you were there, the Lady in White, Bastion Square in Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Well written, well documented. Lady in White. Obviously, it's always a Lady in White. There's one in Vancouver as well. There's Lady in Whites everywhere. But it was a Lady in White that was of Bastion Square, Victoria, and we were both Cathy and myself had the privilege to investigate the Maritime Museum in Victoria, and I actually captured a picture of the Lady in White. And the back end of the museum used to be a part of Bastion Square before they bricked it up, and it was actually the hanging area where she was hung. And I caught 2 pictures of the Lady in White on my camera, which was phenomenal, and it just blew me away. But yeah, that's my story. That's my ghost story.
That's cool.
I don't really have a ghost story, but I do feel like, obviously places that have some sort of history. I just think that, I mean, here we have a place called Fort Edmonton, which is, it's just the reconstruction of Edmonton, from, I think it starts like the late 1800s and goes to about 1920 or something like that. And then we've got the actual, replication of the fort. And there's so many ghost stories about this place. And the thing is that there's really nothing there, but people tend to, something's old, right? Well, we have to make a ghost story about it. And it might start off as, something simple, and it just goes from there. I I personally don't have any ghost stories besides what Peter just told. But we do find that we have a lot of locations here in the city where there might have been, one occurrence or something like that, and people have basically turned it into something else. We actually had a hospital here. We used to have this old hospital here called the Charles Council, and it's since been torn down, and it's since I think they're building apartments over it. But I mean, this is the most famous haunted location, I guess, in Edmonton, or at least it was. And, we would always get these stories that people were breaking in and doing this and doing that. And you're like, dude, the place has been in shambles for like 10 years. And when they started, breaking the building down, they had security that would sit outside. And they were like, as soon as you walked, if you did get in the building, as soon as you were on your way out, you were arrested. So we know that, 100% of those stories are completely false and made up, right? Anything that anybody could pretty much come up with. And but there was all kinds of ghost stories about this hospital. And so now, of course, that they're turning it into apartment buildings, I'm sure there's going to be some pretty busy, just from the reputation alone. Whether or not anything actually happens, who knows, right? But I think that a lot of people, just knowing the reputation of the hospital itself, real or imagined, is going to be quite interesting. So.
Hospitals always set the picture anyway of being haunted, regardlessly whether anyone's ever had any experience.
Yeah.
It's them and prisons as well, because they've got that kind of energy, or more so with hospitals as well, where that's the place where people die, or it's like old people's homes and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. My daughter was actually born in that hospital, so we always kind of joke about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and then I think it was torn down just a few years after she was born. So I mean, it's been pretty much, in shambles, for quite a few years, right? But yeah, it just the rumors never stop about it, and people even now are claiming, oh, I was in the hospital last week. What, you were walking around an empty parking lot? Like, what the hell?
It's funny.
Yeah. So
okay, so moving on to number 7, messenger ghosts. So messenger ghosts, generally unfinished business. They're for warnings, that kind of thing. They generally the story is that they are they want to tell you, they want to tell you something before they move on, that kind of thing. Obviously, there's other reasons sometimes that they generally appear, but what do you think, Lynda?
Yeah, I think that can happen. I mean, I have heard stories in our public meetings. People have told me things about, that they have received messages, not necessarily just by opening up their eyes and seeing a ghost at the foot of the bed of, Great Aunt Martha that says, okay, so let me tell you something. No.
The gold is in the basement.
Right. Don't go shopping tomorrow. Horrible accident. But I have heard stories where because ghosts and spirits can visit you when you're in an altered state of consciousness, so in your dreams or right before you're falling asleep, people often say that they have ghosts of relatives or friends that do appear to them in that state of consciousness or unconsciousness, and tell them things that they should be afraid of, or people that they should possibly be wary of, or things like that. So I mean, it's a very common thing, and there is a commonality to it. So it's got to be right, if there's a commonality. But I believe, I do think it's possible. Why not?
Cathy?
So, for those that don't know, I do medium work. I've encountered the odd person that comes through with sort of, I wouldn't say it was particularly a message or something like that, but I've had a couple of, where they've come through and they've said, look at, be aware of this particular person, like we were talking about before, or, I'm worried about my brother, and I've had that conversation with people, and I'll say, because I'll hear, that somebody's worried about, a particular person. And when you ask the person who this is, they'll be like, yeah, that's my brother. I'm like, okay, I'm just told to pass along that, this is something to be aware of, or to give them a phone call, or to whatever it is. Right. But I wouldn't say, on investigations or anything like that. I think you're right, though, Lynda, about the altered state. I think a lot of people do, get a lot of messages, when they're dreaming or something along that line. I mean, I've had, clients that, get really profound messages while they're sleeping. I'm personally not one of them. I end up having wackadoodle dreams that make no sense. So I'm not one of those, prolific dreamers, but I definitely feel like if I guess if you're going to deliver a message, that might be maybe the best way to do it sometimes.
Yeah, I think, like, obviously being a medium is slightly different when you're that investigator, where you rely on scientific tools to produce evidence and stuff like that, because sometimes there's a lot of coincidences in relation to, like, the EVP you got, and you try and put 2 and 2 together and you kind of make 8. One particular time when I was down in Vancouver again, we had an investigation where a lady called us in, and she said that there was a lot of things going on in her place, and there was things vibrating, and she could hear voices and stuff like that. It was the weirdest thing about it was that she had a rabbit that would go freaking nuts. Like, it would go like, like Monty Python with that white rabbit that jumps on your neck and stuff like that. It was similar to that. It would, like, you'd take it out of the cage, and she would simulate it to us. That rabbit would go absolutely nuts about its sensing the environment and stuff like that. But anyway, the short of it being is that we kind of got a story about her husband died. He drank himself to death and stuff like that. And she wanted everything that we gave her to be him more than anything else. And everything we gave her, like, and we went there for like weeks on end, and it was like the odd whisper, and it was just like, well, that doesn't really mean anything. It could be the heating coming on and stuff like that. And there was nothing solid, nothing concrete in relation to that. But then it was the very last time we were there, and we was probably the last couple of hours before we left, and we brought a guest in, and a guy from another team, and he sat there and he was upstairs, and he was talking for probably about an hour constantly, like, and I was like, just give it some time, give it time for the spirit to respond and stuff like that. But it was like da, and he was just like, really, it was kind of like a psychiatrist talking to this one spirit. But then after about 15 minutes, you felt the environment just change. It became a lot more thicker, and I couldn't see, I couldn't see a man there or anything like that, but you could feel it. The environment changed. And then he turned around and said, just before we were packing up, he said that in passing, is there anything you would like to say to the client before we go? And obviously, I'm not going to give her a name or anything like that. I call her the client. And he said, tell her I'm sorry and I love her. And we got that on an EVP.
Oh, wow.
Bang. And then it was that was the piece. And of course that was her husband and stuff like that. And then after that, nothing happened. The place just went back.
Wow.
It was the weirdest thing. Well, not the weirdest thing, but obviously in relation to number 7, messengers.
Yeah.
Had something to say. And that was probably one of the only few times that something like that as you hear about on TV shows. It's always, there's someone's got a story about things like that, but it actually happened. And it was so much of a coincidence. It was almost to the point where we were like done in that place, and it was just like, we can't give you any more evidence because we can't put anything together. And it was almost as if that spirit knew as well at the same time. And it's just like, no, I've got to tell her now. This is my last chance saloon. And he just came out of it, and it was phenomenal. It was brilliant, and it was a tear to your eye kind of moment as well.
She must have been just blown away, hey?
Oh, she was, and it helped her. It helped her family as well, because there was obviously, when you have family members that die of alcohol related problems.
Yeah.
It puts a lot of it affects the family more than what it does them sometimes. When it's anyway. I won't go too detail about that, but I've got my own opinions about that. So then moving on, residual hauntings. We've spoken about this before. I can probably start off with this. I do strongly believe in residual hauntings. I think I'm probably more inclined on residual hauntings than what I am intelligent hauntings, if you get them both up against the side of each other. A lot of the footage and the evidence I've got over the years does run parallel to the investigation, but there is that element of just coincidence as well, because you get a lot of times where you ask questions and you don't get the right answer back, but it does kind of correlate with the environment you're in, or the place or the person that lives there as well. So it's kind of okay, are they like two questions behind? Or you get that kind of you kind of get that thought in your brain where it's like, oh, what color's the sky, and then you get the answer Angela or something like that, and it's that to that effect. And I strongly believe in residual hauntings, and I believe in that theory. And it's also there's also an overlap with scientific science as well, where energy does retain itself into something, like the stone tape theory and stuff like that. It is a theory, but at the same time, the basic principles is if you heat up a kettle, it retains heat, and that's the basic theories of what we're trying to achieve with residual hauntings as well. So I'll hand the mic to Kathy and tell me what you think, young lady.
Yeah, we've captured a couple of EVPs, that were more, I guess that related to a residual haunting, just simply based off of what the client had originally told us. One of them was there was an empty house that we had access to, and they had actually just moved out. But one of their things was that they kept hearing like a grandfather clock going off at around, whatever it was, 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And they said they could hear this damn clock, and but they didn't have one. They had nothing that would replicate a grandfather clock. So when they moved out, we asked them if we could, just have the house for the night, just an empty house, right? And we had set up the digital recorder. And we actually even one of our investigators left out some cookies just so that the ghost would have something to do if there was anything haunting the place or whatever. But you could actually hear the cookie bag rustle at some point. So that was a little interesting, because we weren't sure if that was like a mouse, or is this, partly to do with like some sort of haunting that was going on in the house. But nevertheless, at 11 o'clock, you could hear the grandfather clock going off. And this was not a house that was like, it wasn't an apartment, it wasn't a condo. This was, it was actually quite a ways away. Even if the neighbors had a grandfather clock going off, there's no way that you would have heard it, in this house. It was far enough away. And it was also on a corner lot as well. So there was quite a lot of, property between the houses. And it was actually really interesting that we were able to catch it. So yeah, that was pretty much our experience with residual, I would say.
That's interesting. Yeah, we've had some experience with residuals as well, especially because I've dealt with a lot of different areas in Ontario. There are a lot of homes that I visited at one point in my silly career near Fort Erie. And some of the houses that are built near the fort, the people there report hearing what they describe as gunfire or cannon fire or things like that. Yeah. They do report seeing what look like people dressed in military uniforms at different areas, either on their block, in their backyards, which I thought was really fascinating. And at that point, I remember saying, well, it's got to be residual, number one. And because so many people are reporting them in that whole area, it has to be. And it was always when, it's so weird, but, you know, and it sounds so cliche, but it is true. People reported seeing them when atmospheric conditions were just right. And I think that's one of the things we're going to be talking about soon as well. So I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, it's actually the next one, actually. It's kind of weird like that. Moving on, number 5, weather changes, just kind of in relation to that. So I'd give you stormy weathers, earthquakes, tsunamis, that kind of thing. When basically when there's a break of energy in our environment, the theory is that manifests spirits to the point of to extreme in some cases as well. I'll give you I can brush upon a classic example of that. During about 7-8 years ago, no, probably longer than that. I think it was about 10 years ago, down in the lower mainland and on the island as well, there was an earthquake where the tremors came all the way over to Vancouver and I was actually working in New Westminster at the time, and it created a complete influx of inquiries for the group I was with at the time, like Vancouver Paranormal Society. We were inundated at some points with like 3 to 4 inquiries a week from people saying that this is going on and that was going on and stuff like that. And out of all that, probably about the 80% of the cases that we took on, there was actually, you know, something in relation to paranormal activity. So I believe strongly in, you know, that environmental change could have an influx on that.
Yeah.
Lynda.
Yeah, I agree with that. We used to make a joke about it where, you know, if stormy weather was coming, or if you changed from, let's say, the fall to the winter, or the winter to the spring, or if there's a fluctuation in any kind of you know, atmospheric conditions, that we're going to get more and more reports. And it actually is true. We tend to get more and more reports of strange activity. I know at this time of the year too, when things are more sort of damp, and we have, let's say, 3 or 4 days in a row where it's really rainy and windy, we tend to get more hits on our website. So I think there's a correlation there. It's energy, right? So
yeah, it's a break of energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had I don't know if this would count as weather, but we had a small town here in Alberta where about 10 years ago it burned down. Like, there was a huge, massive fire. And we actually got many reports. Like, we actually went out there and spent, you know, a weekend or two, simply because of all the reports that were coming in after the fire. And we had a lot of people, and they were all very, very similar. And it did seem to be a lot more like, I would have to say, like poltergeistic, you know, behavior. Right. But it seemed to stir up something for sure. I would agree with that. Again, it's not weather, but it's environment. I can tell you that when it's about to storm, I have a 10-foot boa constrictor who will tell me it's going to storm, because he starts really going around his cage and he's like losing his mind. So you'll look outside and you'll be like, oh, there's a thunderstorm coming. I'm betting, because he does not, like, he reacts to it.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Okay, number 4. Dun dun dun, demonic. So what do you think, Kathy? You did brush upon it earlier on, so
yeah. I mean, it's not that I don't believe in energy, for sure. I do believe in it. I just feel that with TV and movies and everything else, I think that, you know, people are conditioned now to believe that anything that is going on spiritually, I guess, or haunted, you know, type of activity, they automatically jump towards, you know, it being demonic, or it, you know, being inhuman. saying that though, you know, again, being a medium, I've seen some things that I'm just like, I do not know what the hell that is. Like when I've gone into houses, there's been things where I've been like, oh, what the hell is that? However, does that mean that they're demonic? Right. And, you know, sometimes, you know, just because they're inhuman doesn't mean that they're particularly bad. Sometimes they're there as warnings, or they're there, you know, for some other reason. There was actually, so kind of just going away from that, but we had one case where there was a lot of complaints about the father being very much harassed. It was a stepfather, the mother, and he had 2 boys and she had 2 girls. So there was 4 kids altogether. And we kept getting, they were calling in regards to the father being really the one that was getting like poked and scratched. And so we kind of went in under the theory that this was demonic, you know, to some degree, right? Just, we had that in the back of our minds. It's not like we're walking in thinking, oh, we're going to run into a demon. But there was me and another investigator who were both, you know, mediums. And the thing that we saw was like, it would blow your mind away. However, interesting enough, this thing, it was sort of like, I know this sounds crazy. It was almost like a tour guide. It was showing us some of the things that were going on in this house. And it actually led us downstairs to the kids' room, one of the girls' rooms, and they had a lock on the outside of their door. So, and, you know, we actually decided we were going to back away from this case simply because there was stuff going on there that was illegal and very, without saying too much about it, because people are going to be like, well, why didn't you do anything? Well, what are you going to do? Tell somebody that a ghost told me that somebody was being hurt in a way that wasn't appropriate. You know what I mean? Turns out, so we did sort of back away from the case. We just said, you know, if you need us, like, we're here, we can, but we're not going to do an investigation, because the thing is that, you know, a lot of people are like, we should cleanse it out. But if we had cleansed that out, what would have happened? Right? It could have been worse. However, as it turned out, a couple of weeks later, we got an email from the mother basically saying that the father was going up for charges. We'll leave it at that, because we don't want to, you know, interfere with the YouTube algorithm, but we're going to leave it at that. But basically what we had seen was he was being charged and arrested for. So, you know, is it inhuman? Yeah, inhumans, you know, are sometimes not always bad. We don't know the reason. But it was funny because this thing was going after the father. Yeah. And that's originally why they had called us in. And now, as far as demonic, I mean, it's not that I don't believe in them again, but I think that I kind of believe in the sheep theory. You know, if you got a whole household that's, you know, experiencing stuff, I think that you can, I wouldn't say it was demonic, but I think that you can change it from possibly a positive energy, or just an energy that's maybe floating through or passing by in the neighborhood, to something that's worse, just by placing your fear onto it. And it's not that you're particularly changing it into something demonic, but you're giving it more energy to be able to affect you in a different way.
Yeah. I believe, well, there's the word, the definition demonic or demons and stuff like that, it's lost its true definition, because there's multiple amounts of cultures and religions that define demons in different ways. That symbol has different representations in different cultures and societies as well. For what I do with the work I do as well, I've been that close before to get, you know, to solidify myself that there is that demon out there and stuff like that. But I've never got to that point where I've acknowledged that there's that stereotypical possession, demons and stuff like that. I think it's become a lot more populated now on TV and media, and it's created more of a stigma that there's more out there than what there is, and it's become a point where that media's also plays too much of it, and you're dealing with people's minds and people's well-beings as well when you're going into someone's house and you're preaching that there's a demon in the house without having a full understanding of what a demon is.
Right.
And we have those out there. We have those ghost hunters. There is that element to it as well. For me to turn around and say, I don't believe in demons would be kind of ignorant being a paranormal investigator, because you got to be open to anything within, providing you get that proof. That's what we're here for. We're those investigators that are after that proof. I'm on the fence, honestly, and I've seen a lot of videos in the past with things that define logic.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen real exorcisms as well, where things have happened, and it's not head spinning around and stuff like that. I've seen physical characteristics of people that are not possible in relation to things that they cannot do, and things that have come out of their body that you wouldn't be able to live if you did that unless you've got some kind of mechanism inside your body to do that. And I'm not going into too much specifics. I think that there's something out there that we don't understand. We're humans, and our knowledge is only that much, and we will only know that much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with people with ghosts and Bigfoot and UFOs and stuff like that. And it's a culture that I have a respect for. But I think that we as paranormal investigators or ghost hunters and stuff like that, we really exploit that subject, and it needs to be put back to where it was originally, and get rid of all these wankers that are out there dressed up as priests and stuff like that, proclaiming that they're demonologists, where they have no idea what they're doing whatsoever. They're playing, they're toiling with fire effectively. Sorry, that's me venting as well at the same time, but it's something I'm very passionate about as well. And anyway, sorry, Lynda,
No, I agree with you. I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but I totally agree with everything that you're saying. I've seen an exorcism myself, and I agree. It's crazy. But I also have dealt with some things. For example, 15 years ago, a family was having an issue, and they said that there was a demon in the house, and the demon spelled its name, and it said that it was a demon. Well, they were screwing around with a spirit board, and that's what came through. It was one of those rogue type spirits who understood that the family was Roman Catholic and was playing around with their mind. They were terrified of anything demonic. So it, of course, said that it was a demon, and it spelled the name of a demon. And, it's incredible. You don't play with things that you don't understand. And there are spirits and entities out there that'll come in and they'll tell you things that you want to hear or that you don't want to hear, so that they can have some sort of power over you. And that was a particularly difficult case, really difficult.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, flying through the remainder, we have attachments to objects. So that's become very popular over the last few years with TV shows in relation to haunted objects and stuff like that. We've spoken about this before in previous shows, Lynda and Cathy, and I do strongly believe in the concept that objects could carry that energy. It's the same as, going back to that residual piece as well, that energy has to go somewhere. I don't believe in the amount of cases that are out there at the moment. It seems to be that every old doll is haunted and stuff like that, and I kind of it really gets me about that, because there's people out there scooping up a lot of money with an old doll that, quite frankly, you can just throw in the back of a trash. And it's that side, but I don't know. Like when I started, there was that myth of, not myth as such. There was haunted objects out there, and it was talk about it, but not as strongly now since last decade for sure.
I believe in them. I do believe in them. I've never really particularly experienced one. I don't think. I'd have to searching my memory bank, but I mean, nothing is popping up. But I do believe in them. I mean, one of the most famous locations is the Warren, Museum, where, they have hundreds of objects, that have had attachment. The interesting thing is, though, one of the things I do give them credit for is the fact that they haven't, yes, they've got the museum. However, they have done a few, shows inside of it or walkthroughs or something like that. But it hasn't been something that they've made millions of dollars from. You know what I mean? It's not one of those where we know, there are certain shows that would turn that into a complete propaganda, right? But yeah, I mean, I do believe in them personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then number 2, running water and minerals. So the theory being is that like certain materials such as quartz, flint, all retain certain energies. Running water as well. Yeah. What else? If there's houses by train tracks and stuff like that, they carry their pronounced activity as well. It's kind of an old theory that's been around for quite a few years. Well, it's been around since I've been investigating as well, and it was kind of one of the first things you ask when you're speaking to someone over the phone. You remember the good old days of the telephone? We used to talk to people over the phone. It's more or less that. It was like, okay, do you live near a river? Do you live by power lines? And that kind of thing. And so, what do you think, Lynda?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I'm a really huge fan of John Sable. I don't know if you know him, but he does something called ghost excavation, and he talks about things like that. He talks about the stone tape theory. He talks about being able to excavate ghosts and capture all kinds of incredible sounds and incredible things that have been, residual in all kinds of things like stone and slate and things like that. It's pretty fascinating, but I believe it. I've dealt with a lot of cases where, I live near a lake and we have a lot of hauntings. And I think that water definitely can attract them. Running water, absolutely. What about you, Kathy?
Well, I've never personally had any experience with them, but the first thing that always comes to mind when I hear about that is the Stanley Hotel. I mean, that's supposedly quite a lot of residual haunting, and it is limestone with the water. And there's still reports that come in from the Stanley Hotel about people that have seen a lot of residual energy coming through there. So I don't know about it being particularly intellectual hauntings, but I've heard about residual hauntings for sure. How about you, Peter?
It's always been a tough one. It's really how as an investigator could you deter that the reason why Margaret's house is active is because the fact that she's got a burst water main under her house, or that her house has been her house has more, that street is active because there's a lot of flint under the ground and stuff like that. I guess if you're categorizing when I was a part of VPS, when I was the president of VPS, and you put all sections of the Lower Mainland together, it was weird. You put there's some areas which are harder ground than what there is softer ground, and there's some areas that were built on marshland, and it was actually the marshland that was actually popularized more with cases than what it was the kind of the hard areas in North Vancouver and things like that. So it's kind of weird. So we don't have the resources to actually give that a proper test run, and we don't know for sure. It's always a kind of theory, and I think unless we get we all get a map together and we jot out kind of any kind of parallels or anything that is like patterns and stuff like that. That's the only way we're really going to know. But until then, it's just a theory. I get it. I understand it, and it's you know, there's loads of stories about you know, ghosts around like rivers and lakes and stuff like that because of, well, believingly that.
Well, there's always the white woman that walks along the river. It's always,
Woman in white
always the
again.
woman
There
in
you go.
white.
Steve. That woman gets out everywhere. Not the woman in grey, as to what Ian said. Woman in white. But yeah, it's a theory. Yeah, and I do kind of buy into it because it makes sense. But we haven't really proved it, have we? Really?
Right.
And we haven't really proved a lot over the last 15 to 20 years. We're just trying to put bits of a puzzle together, and it's so yeah. So then moving on. Number one, intelligent hauntings, of course. Lynda.
Oh yeah, I mean, we deal with those all the time. Ghosts that want to communicate with people, ghosts that actually come through with intelligent responses on things like spirit boxes and the like. Yeah, I mean, I've been there, done that, still there, still doing it, and I still believe it. Yeah, absolutely. They can absolutely talk to us, and they are intelligent. Done.
Well,
your EVP was kind of proof of that, right? Right there. Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
And Peter's too. So
it is, and it's really going back to what I said at the beginning, like having that line in the sand between residual and like intelligent, and it's fine. Is it a coincidence that we're getting like a name coming through that correlates to the house and stuff like that? We don't know, and is it just the fact that we're getting a name because it's a residual? It's, you know, someone's name was present in the house and stuff like that, and somehow we tapped into that frequency. We don't know, and I believe intelligent hauntings as well, but I think that a lot of what I deal with and what I've dealt with over the years could be more put towards residual. But I've been called out. I've had my full name mentioned to me. I've had team members and stuff like that, and I've had responsive answers to my questions just like that. Like, and I always look for, when I'm doing EVPs and stuff like that, I ask specific questions. I don't want a yes, no generic answer because it doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything to me. It just, you know, you can just put it on the back of a postcard and just throw it out the door kind of thing. But I've had responses back on that, and it's, yeah, that's intelligent as well. But I don't think that all of it is intelligent, and it's, yeah.
I think for me, one of the things that, you know, this is before I was an investigator, and, you know, when my son was little, like he was only, you know, a year and a half, too, he was still in his little crib, and, you know, he kept getting, you know, woken up in the middle of the night, and he kept saying, the guy's in my room, you know, and pointing into the corner. And when it's a memory that, you know, it's one of those memories that you're never going to lose. Like, because, you know, I said to this, wherever he was pointing in the room, in the corner, I said, get out of my son's room, you know, get the fuck, excuse me, get out, you know.
Cathryn.
Oh,
Jesus.
Anyway. But because I was, you know, like you could tell that my kid was really bothered by it. And when I watched my son with his eyes watch whatever it was, walk right behind, like you could see him watch from one side of the room all the way to the door. And then he just sort of laid down. And I said, is he gone? And he went, yeah, and fell asleep. For me, that was right there, like the proof of like an intelligent haunting, because you could see my son was in some aspect, you know, interacting with this thing. And it was, I mean, you know, the thing is, I think if it was an older child, you'd still be a little maybe skeptical. But the fact that this is such a young, you know, a young child, still a toddler, to be able to have that reaction, you're just like, wow, okay, there's definitely something is going on here. So
I totally agree, Kathy. Yeah. Seriously, I do. I mean, when I had experiences when I was a little kid, I would wave at them and they would wave back to me.
Yeah.
So that's intelligent to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, crazy stuff, eh?
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. So I'm just trying to find the My eyes aren't as what they used to be, that's for sure.
Me neither.
There we go. So thank you guys for tuning in. And if you like the show, please subscribe and click on notifications. And we will be back next week for another show. And have a great evening, guys. And
Take care.
take care. Bye.